What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another Battlefield 6 gun guide. This is the series where I dive deep into the stats of a gun, and toward the end of the video, I share a couple excellent attachment combinations to use. In today's episode, by popular request, we're going to be sticking in the LMG category and covering the M250. And starting it off as always, let's have a look at our raw power potential, and when it comes to our rate of fire, this is right around average for an LMG in this game at 674 rounds per minute. And the really interesting thing about this gun is it has one damage range. It deals the same amount of damage at any range, and that is 25 damage to the body, meaning it's going to be a 4-shot kill for a time to kill potential at 267 milliseconds. Now, right up close, this time to kill potential isn't amazing by any means. It is worse than average for an LMG. However, the fact that this extends out to an infinite range is what makes this really powerful, because all of the other LMGs and all of the other guns in the game will be dropping off, whereas this one won't be. Also, when it comes to headshots, if you want a 3-shot kill, all of those shots need to hit the head. And if you do that, you will get a great time to kill potential at 178 milliseconds, but that's fairly difficult to do consistently, so you could use hollow points, which will cut that down to 2 headshots mixed in with a body shot for a 3-shot kill. Now after that, I want to have a look at the range comparison here with the other LMGs, just to really highlight where the power of this gun comes in. Like I said, right up close, most of the other LMGs will be beating you here. However, when we start looking even at mid-ranges, just beyond like 21.25 meters for instance, it's now got the best time to kill in the LMG category from that point on to infinity. So that really goes to show where this gun excels, and just how much potential it's got. As for our velocity value, this is quite solid at 760 meters per second. It's not the best in the LMG category, but it's definitely up there. And when it comes to hipfire, it's the same as all of the other LMGs, and that is to say that it's not very good. You generally want to avoid hipfiring with this unless you're really close to your target and kind of desperate. And with that covered, we can finally get into recoil. And this is an area where I wouldn't say the recoil is bad on this LMG, but it's also not great. There is a little bit of randomness with it, even with those initial shots fired where there's very little spread. There is some inconsistency there. It might bounce a little bit to the right or left on you unexpectedly, and that can definitely throw you off, especially if you're using this gun where it's meant to excel, which is at longer ranges. That may cause some issues for you relative to many of the other LMGs that are at least more consistent with those initial shots. So again, I'm not saying it's incredibly inaccurate, it's just not really a standout in this area, and it may cause you some problems if you're stretching things out. Now, let's move into our handling stats, and there's really nothing too special about the M250 in this area. It does have quite a slow aim down sight time like most of the other LMGs. Same thing with our sprint out time. One thing I will say is its magazine capacity by default is just 50 rounds, and it's got quite a slow reload time at 5.75 seconds considering how small this magazine is. What this means is, when using this, I just often found myself spending a lot of time reloading throughout a match because I would pick up like 3-4 kills roughly per magazine on average, and then I've got to stop and find a good place to reload and take my time to do that. So that is something that I would consider to be a notable downside when using this gun. In either case, for our base multiplayer stats, this just leaves us with mobility, and as expected, the LMGs are at the bottom of the list here. Although, if you use LMGs with the support class, your sprint speed will be bumped up to match all of the other guns in the game. It's just your aim walking speed at that point that will be noticeably slower than the rest. And with that out of the way, let's have a quick look at the REDSEC stats against 2 armor plates in Battle Royale. As far as I can tell, keeping in mind they did screw up Portal a little bit, so I no longer have the ability to add armor plates in Portal. I don't know what happened there, but one of the updates recently messed with that. I did go through and watch a lot of gameplays from people and slow it down, and as far as I can tell at least, it's always going to be an 8-shot kill, meaning we get a very consistent time to kill at 623 milliseconds. And once again, it is a similar story here where right up close, if you compare it to the other LMGs, we are killing a bit slower. However, once you start getting out to like mid to long ranges where a lot of your fights are going to take place in REDSEC, you now have a very exceptional time to kill at 623 milliseconds. In fact, to my knowledge, this is the fastest killing full auto gun at long range in REDSEC because of this consistency, and that makes this an upper tier choice for REDSEC. And now that we have all of that out of the way, let's get into a couple attachment combinations that I wanted to recommend for you guys to try out. And the first one is my personal favorite. This is my balanced accuracy build, and thankfully with this gun, you have the lightened suppressor unlocked right away, and that's my preferred suppressor with this gun. So we're using the lightened suppressor, the heavy extended barrel on this, so we get increased muzzle velocity as well as reduced spread when firing. We have the stippled stubby for our underbarrel. That gives us a nice amount of recoil control while also helping to keep our aim down sight time reasonable. We're using the standard 50 round mag on this, the standard ammo, and the OSA 7 optic. And with this, we can see the recoil is nicely reduced. Also, the spread is reduced, and that little bit of randomness when you first start firing, that's cut down quite a bit with this setup. So I just find that this feels a lot more accurate than the base version of the gun. And I've managed to find quite a bit of success with this. It is a very versatile way to use the M250. One issue with that setup, though, is the 50-round mag. And like I said, I just find myself reloading a lot throughout a match. So the next setup I wanted to share for you guys isn't one that really suits my playstyle super well, but I wanted to share it for variety's sake at least, and this is my big mag setup. So with this, we are using the 100-round mag, which unfortunately costs 55 attachment points, so that eats up a ton of those. But combined with that, we're using the standard ammo, the bipod, which you can mount with this setup and be very accurate and effective there. We once again have that heavy extended barrel, the flash hider this time, so we are showing up on the minimap, but at least we don't have a diamond appearing above our head every time we pull the trigger. And then finally, we're topping it off with my preferred slightly higher zoom optic, which is the ROM 1.75. Now this one technically has a bit more recoil climb than the previous one if you're not mounted using the bipod. However, if you use the bipod, you're going to be a lot more accurate. And even without the bipod, you're still accurate enough that you can handle yourself in a wide variety of situations. And as I said, this one doesn't really suit my personal playstyle all that much, but I wanted to recommend it for variety's sake for those of you guys that don't mind hanging back a little bit more and want that bigger mag. And there we have it. That is going to wrap it up for today's breakdown on the M250 LMG. And when it comes to my personal thoughts on this gun, it's one of these cases where I can really recognize the potential of it and the power that's involved with it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really suit my preferred playstyle. I generally like being a lot more aggressive, keeping myself more in close quarters, and that's not where this gun shines. In fact, it's a little on the weaker side relative to the others. Not totally unusable, but a little on the weaker side for those close quarters fights. However, it has a ton of power potential in those longer ranges, so if that's how you like to play, I could totally see you really enjoying this gun. And so for me, it's not really one of my personal favorites, but I can absolutely see why people would love this LMG, and especially in REDSEC, I can see a lot of potential there with this one. Now, of course, these are just my thoughts on the M250, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this gun in those comments down below. Do you guys really like this LMG? What are your thoughts on the fact that it has no damage range drop-off, unlike any of the other guns in the game? Just let me know down below. Also, if you guys have missed any of the previous gun guides, I will of course leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video, and feel free to let me know which gun you'd like me to cover next. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.